it's preparing. And
perfect. Is there anyone in the YouTube room that you can see?
not yet.
Okay, good. So we can still talk freely.
Okay, it is live on YouTube now. 5 people, it says.
Hello, YouTube.
Okay, I just closed the YouTube because I was hearing the same question over and over again.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, that loopy thing. So what I've seen some folks have to do is to start the live stream from a different room, like a different computer.
I think it should be okay because I turned off the like YouTube video. Like I don't have that like running on my computer right now.
Oh, okay. But the live streaming is still live streaming.
Yeah, I'm on the live stream, like I'm on the back end of YouTube, like here, and me hearing you ask the question is not happening multiple times right now. So,
Perfect. That was the thing. So
yeah. So I think we're good. Now that I've started the live stream and I've pinned videos, Kelly, I'm gonna go ahead and make you our host. And then Kelly, can you make all of us the co-hosts, and can you pin my video and leave the pins in the other people's videos, or add the pins?
Is Kelly back?
She might not be back yet.
Hello. I just got back.
Oh, good.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you make each of us a co-host, and then can you pin the 4 of us so that we're the pictures?
Sure. Okay, let's see.
Lighting. Slightly better.
Okay, are you all co-hosts now?
Yep.
I think so.
Perfect.
Looks like it because I can see the waiting room now.
Right.
A lot of familiar names.
I'll say hi before I turn off my camera again. I brushed my hair. I was like, it was just crazy. And I was like, I can't go on camera like this. And then I just put a little something in it. But I think I'm still going to hide.
That's why I was like, oh, I have to go change my shirt and put on like brush my hair real quick.
Yeah.
Kelly, I just sent you some links. When I open the poll, can you put the first link, participate in the poll, menti.com, and the code into the chat to everyone? And then when the last slide goes up, can you put the last 3 links in just so that people can like have the direct links?
Sure. Could you repeat for the first one when you want me to put that in?
I'll like say, okay, I'm gonna open up like the Mentimeter poll, and I'll change the screen to show like the poll.
Okay. Got it.
So yeah. I think we're good. Sharon, just FYI, I'll talk for a couple of minutes just about like why we're doing this. And then when I get to this slide, you can introduce yourself, like your name, your school, and then like what your role with NAFSA is. And then I'll start just diving into the questions about like
summarize how you're feeling about online filing. How involved would you say your school has been with the OPT process, like those questions.
Sarah, are you going to be asking those questions out loud and then we are each responding to them, or do you want us to include that in our intro?
I'll ask them out loud and then I'll have you just like go in order for like the first question and then the second question. I think it's most like wet people's beaks and then contextualize that like it is my personal opinion that no one is an expert about online filing right now.
Yeah, clearly just started.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. Those are my favorite questions, by the way, when everyone's like, well, what can we expect? It just came out.
Yeah. Like we're all in the same boat, which is good. And then we'll do the Mentimeter, which has a bunch of, like, it essentially asks the schools the same question, like the participants the same questions. And then we'll talk a little bit about the resources that, I will talk a little bit about the resources that we created. And then we'll just transition to live questions.
Cool.
Oops.
Ooh, it's a Canva presentation. No wonder it's so beautiful.
Yeah, I've never used Canva for presentations before.
Okay.
You have the pro. You have the pro account, right, Sarah?
We do. Our global engagement office pays for our pro account, which I love it. I did not know what Canva was until this year. And our study abroad advisor is phenomenal at like social media, visual media. And she put together like essentially like a user's guide for us. And she's actually the new NAFSA Region 12 comm coordinator.
Oh, okay.
I'm
cool.
so excited because she's amazing. Like the stuff that she can do is just amazing. So so now I'm trying to use Canva for my presentations because they look so much better than PowerPoint.
Yeah, than PowerPoint. No, it's so funny because, okay, I don't have the pro account, but I had not heard of Canva either until this last year. My, so I had a friend living with me like right when we went into lockdown. And so he ended up having to stay with me for quite some time. But he like does political, he helps people with their political like campaigns and stuff, right?
Yeah.
In a nutshell, among like thousands of other things. But I was like showing him a flyer that I was making for work, and I was like, this flyer looks really ugly. Does it look ugly? And he's like, yeah. And he goes, Risha, Canva. And I was like, what? And so that's how I heard about it, was through him. And it's like, I love it. It's changed my life forever. Like such program things. And yeah, it's quite nice. One day, maybe I can get the paid version, but for now, freebies.
Yeah, definitely. There are some nice things about the paid version. The main reason that I think we invested in it was because it allows you to upload like your university's like color and font and like all of the university marketing collateral, which has been helpful. So yeah,
I actually think our main marketing office does have the paid version, but for my office we don't, right?
Yeah But yes, gone are the days of like I will say it is extremely easy to use. Like I was very hesitant. I'm like, I don't know, that looks really fancy. Like I'm not really a fancy kind of, I'm more of like a words on my slides kind of girl. But it's very easy to use. I like it. Big fan.
Very pretty. Very pretty.
Is anyone showing off any of their resources that they already have currently, or no? Since we have
I have it posted on my page. If Sarah, you want a resource share section?
I've created a Google document where people could share their resources directly, because I want to try to encourage other schools to share their resources.
Oh, nice.
I feel comfortable. Like I know not every school is allowed to do that. And schools have stuff behind, login walls. But yeah, so I have a Google Doc.
Did you already put our stuff in there? I like scrolled through it, but I didn't look like super.
I didn't. I can if you want me to, or you can put it in. And that's one of the 3 links that
Kelly will put in at the end of the presentation is a link to the folder that has all the curated resources, a link to the document where people can share their resources, and then a link, Sharon, to the IE like professional development resource that Northern California put together. So I'm like obsessively sharing that with everyone.
Great.
I love it.
Goodness.
Yeah, I'll put that in now.
I was signed into my USCIS account just in case we want to show them something. But then it signed me out, which is fine, except for that you have to,
It's two-factor authentication, so I have to go and like generate a code to log in.
What am I looking for? And it's the same drive you're sharing, right? That you sent
Yes.
us?
Yeah, it's the same one.
Okay. I think I'm going to go ahead and put mine in now so I don't have to worry about it later.
Awesome.
Yeah, thinking that too. So wait, so how are we doing it? That I see.
There's one called Share Your I-765 Online Filing Resources. That's the one I'm updating.
I'll chat it.
I'm in the one that it looks like what's for the presentation. Is that right? Or all the screen shares from USCIS? Is that the?
No.
No.
This.
I will put it. I'll put it in the chat if you.
I just
Oh,
put
you
it
should.
in.
You should just put it in the chat.
Ah, I see. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
It's just one of the documents in the larger folder.
All right, I'll put my comments. I feel like, I don't know, I'm always present. And actually what I'll do is I'll move mine down, Sharon, since you're like you're the first presenter. So
Okay.
you take the first, oops, sorry guys. Take the first spot there. In the research.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
I gotta learn how to like manage the time before presentations a little better. I feel like 15 minutes is not enough, but then 30 minutes is too much.
I think 15. I always do 15. But like if you do what you just did, which is do a run through, then it's fine, you know. Oh, you can't lock these. Right? In document, you can't lock. No, you can't.
Is it okay if I put multiple things in that same box?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Cluttered. Oh, it looks kind of. Let's see. If I shrink that a little better. That looks better.
What kind of comments are you hoping people share? Like, feel free to borrow, or like, what do you Sarah? Oh, you're muted, love.
I always do that to encourage myself to talk less, and then I end up regretting it. I was planning to put in some USCIS resources. I mean, if you don't have any comment, like you could say put, like as you said, feel free to share, take, or like we edit it soon or whatever.
Okay.
I think we can let people in from the waiting room just to give them a couple minutes to get settled.
Sure. Everyone, when you add them in, are they already on mute automatically? You're gonna have to like do that housekeeping. You're muted again.
They are automatically muted.
Okay.
And I can turn off the waiting room. Hang on. Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We'll get started in a few minutes.
Good to see some faces and names that we all know. Hi, everyone. If you want to be brave like Christina, feel free to turn your video on so we can all see your lovely faces. It feels less distant that way. No pressure, of course. If you're still in sweatpants and don't want to turn it on, that's totally understandable. Jim, I literally had to put on a different shirt like 5 seconds before we started this because I was like, oh, I have to actually look somewhat decent for this. So totally get that.
Just want to let everyone know we are currently streaming to YouTube, and I will start recording the presentation soon. I'll let you know once I start recording.
Madeline, no worries. No pressure at all. I just know you all know what it's like to present to a room of empty faces. So we thank you if you feel like turning on your video for joining us officially sort of semi in person. But zero pressure to do that. I also love being able to be on a treadmill while we do stuff like this. So I totally get it.
All right, I'm start recording. So be advised that we are recording this. I just want to welcome everybody. I'll start off by saying thank you so much for being with us. I'm Sarah Brockmeyer. I am the Assistant Director of International Students and Scholars at Santa Clara University in Santa Clara, California. And I'm also the Knowledge Community International Student and Scholar Services, so KISS, representative for NAFSA's Region 12, which is California, Nevada, and Hawaii. And I'm joined by some of my fellow NAFSANs from our region today. This is our I-765 online filing table. And we're hoping to spend some time today talking just as a small group about how we're adjusting to the new I-765 online filing possibilities. We'll spend some time doing some group polling to get an idea of how you are adjusting to these possibilities. I'll introduce you to some curated resources that we've put together for you to try to help you develop your practices around online filing. And then we will dive into questions. So that's kind of how we're going to spend our time.
I think just to contextualize the reason for this roundtable or this workshop, anybody who knows me knows that I am, critical of everything really. And I've spent about 7 years working as a DSO and was an immigration paralegal for about 7 years before that. So I feel really like great and well equipped to manage immigration changes. But I know that many of us in the field, see these types of changes coming, and there's always questions about what the best thing to do is. And NAFSA puts out awesome updates about what the regulations are and does a great job advocating for government agencies like USCIS to put out their own updates. USCIS and the USCIS Ombudsman have already put out 2 really, I think, excellent webinars introducing the online filing system. But I think for me, it's really important to remind ourselves that it's not USCIS, it's not NAFSA, it's not immigration attorneys. It's really DSOs that are going to create the practices and the processes to support student success in all manner of what we do, and certainly in regards to the new I-765 online filing system. And so for me, I really love the opportunity to get together with my friends and colleagues and ask, what are you doing about this? How are you handling this? And the longer I am in the field, the more I realize that a lot of what we do is not necessarily directly related to a regulation or a guidance document, but it's really about best practices that have been handed down over kind of generation to generation to generation that may or may not still make sense. And so I just thought this was a really good opportunity for us to come together and start to talk about this. Even in preparation for this, we've had some really great conversations about how this new I-765 online filing is going to allow our offices to really take a step back and rethink how we support OPT at our schools, be that to support it more robustly, or maybe to rethink some of the practices and the recommendations that we've been making to students over the years. I know that we're going to be doing things differently at Santa Clara. And so I'm really excited about the opportunity to, really review what we are doing and determine whether it's still the best practice. So, that's pretty much what we're here to do. I would say nobody on this call is more of an expert than anybody else. Some of us have been in the online filing system, some of us have not, but we're really just here to talk things through and support one another as we are determining whether or not we're going to implement online filing at our schools, and then as we're creating practices to support online filing for our students. So that's what we're here for. Thanks for being here. I will now turn it over to our panelists to introduce themselves and talk just a little bit about their roles within our NAFSA region.
Hi everyone, I'm Sharon Erickson. It's great to be with you here today. I am an international student advisor at UC Davis and in services for international students and scholars. I'm also a DSO ARO. And then I also serve on the NAFSA Northern District team as the chair. And so I'm pleased to be with you here today. Just to give a little bit about our size of our population at UC Davis, we have approximately 7,600 total F1 students and support 800 OPT plus about 260 STEM OPT applications a year.
Hi everyone, my name is Eric Williams. I am the Assistant Director at UC Santa Barbara International Office, and we serve about 4,500 F1 students and have about 600 OPT and STEM OPT students in our school. So we do a little bit more tutorials and basic review of documents, but put most of the onus on the student to make sure that they handle their applications properly, because with a larger audience, it's a little bit harder to do more hand-holding.
And then Eric, what are you this year?
Oh, sorry, I am the Reg Bud for students for Region 12.
Yay. Thanks, Eric. So my name is Nusha Shishigad. I am the former RegVed. That's why I made him say that. But I'm the senior coordinator here at Glendale Community College in Glendale, California, not Arizona. Right now, we have been hit pretty hard, actually, by the pandemic. I'm probably the smallest school represented on the panel. We have about 300 at the moment. And being a community college, most students' goal is to transfer. So we have a very small population of OPT students. At any one time, I would say we have between 20 and 50 active OPT applicants. So I'll save sort of how we do it and why we do it in the way that we do for as we move through the presentation. But looking forward to it. And this year I am the Region 12, I better not forget myself, I'm the Region 12 conference apprentice. So it's going to be an interesting conference this year, but I'm apprenticing it. So I'm looking forward to, hopefully some of you all will submit proposals for Region 12. Would love to see those. We'll be looking forward to seeing some of you get involved.
Definitely. And as I mentioned, I'm Sarah Brockmeyer, the Assistant Director at Santa Clara University. Santa Clara University has about 1,400 students in F1, and we do about 500 I-765. We support about 500 I-765s a year. And then just full disclosure, we did have another panelist, Mariana from Minerva was going to be joining us, and they are really already doing pretty much all of their filings online. And so we have her perspective kind of embedded into some of our answers, but she was called out at the last minute. So that is also happening. I'll just start off by asking our panelists just a couple of questions to whet our beaks and get us into it, if they just want to go in order. So starting with Sharon, how would you summarize UC Davis's feelings about online filing? Just give me a couple words.
Excited. I think there's some advantages to it, but there's been a lot of questions that we needed to get answered first to really know how to best advise students. But it seems like there's definitely pluses for the students in doing so.
Eric, what about UC Santa Barbara?
We were excited, but also some trepidation given the sometimes or often bumpy rollouts that can come with updates from various government agencies. So we kind of really wanted to see other schools use it first and be guinea pigs before we really encouraged our students to use it. But you know, as students learn about it, then they start asking questions. So we're hoping to kind of button this up and get things moving sometime next week.
Awesome. And Nusha?
Oh, for me, I was like, about time. We are in 2021, I think. Yeah, I've already adopted it, pushed it out to all my kids, and have had several students apply, and I love it, and we'll be pushing that away from the mail as much as possible.
Awesome. Of course, Nusha is always our early adopter. I think in terms of, usually. I think in terms of Santa Clara, I would say that if I had to pick a couple of words, I would probably say exhausted, overwhelmed, but also now excited. As I've spent some time in the online filing system, I'm actually much more excited than I was when it was first rolled out. When it was first rolled out, I basically was just like, we don't have time to do this right now. We're too busy doing other stuff to develop all new resources. But at this point, I'm feeling pretty positive. Okay, let's start back at the top. Sharon, how would you say, how involved is UC Davis with the OPT and STEM OPT application processes? Like, do you prepare the forms for the students, review the forms? What would you say your level of interaction is?
I would say that we have a really robust OPT support via a number of different resources for the students on our webpage. We've got instructions there and pictures, I should say, like images. We have 3 recorded videos. We've got PowerPoints for them. We've got within Synopsys where they actually do their request for their OPT recommendation. There's instructions and step-by-step on how to fill out the form, literally line by line. And then we have individual appointments for questions, and we also do separate appointments for a whole packet review once they have everything from, check to photos and everything in between. And then we also, as part of their process, they actually upload the I-765. They scan it and upload it into our Synapses system, where we review it as part of when we're creating the OPT recommendation. We will look at that and give them feedback and detect any of the common mistakes that we know that can cause denials. And then we encourage them to still do a full packet review after that. So it's very robust, but it's a good balance between, because we have so many students, we can't sit there one by one with every single one of them and answer every question and help them fill it out, but we can give them all of the tools. And then, then they can come back to us after they've watched the video and looked at the PowerPoint slides and looked at the instructions and taken a stab at filling out the I-765, then come back to us with the questions through our drop-in appointments or our Zoom advising appointments. So it's a good balance, but it is definitely, a lot of time that we spend on it. And I think it's a source of pride that we have our students getting approved at a really high rate. So it's worth the investment of time.
It's a really good point, well made at the end there about it takes a lot of work, but your school thinks it's worth it. Eric, what about UC Santa Barbara?
So we're similar with UC Davis, where we have an online tutorial that walks them through how to fill out the I-765 and what to include in your packet and all of that. And to apply for OPT, they use Synapses with our office to upload their I-765 for review, along with their I-94 record for us to look at as well. So we are, we provide the resources for them to empower the students. Empowerment is one of my favorite words for helping students, is to empower them to be able to take control of their own applications so that they're part of the process. And we're here as a resource to ask questions so they can email or make an appointment with an advisor. We don't have any sort of specific OPT application review sessions or anything. It's all, we point them to the online tutorial first. And when they submit the request, they have to confirm that they did in fact review the tutorial before they submit it. Whether they actually do it, you can lead a horse to water. But we also find that it's very successful in students getting approved for their I-765, and it allows us to focus more on, the students who need a little more hand-holding or, other issues that aren't related to OPT, where we're standardizing the information that is standardized already, and help walk them through and let the students kind of create their own packets and send those off.
For us, I can just jump in, Sarah. So
Yeah.
For us, I mean, I would rate us as maybe like a moderate sort of help. We do ask all students to attend a workshop, softly required, but they tend to all do it. If they miss the workshops, so the last one is recorded and put online now that we are in the digital age. I personally require a review of the I-765 before I will arrange their OPT appointment and issue that OPT recommendation. So I make it very clear, I'm just checking for completion. I will check the code and make sure they've got that right code. But obviously, if they're going to be applying online, they can actually create it ahead of time. I know the code is correct. So all I'm doing is checking for completion, making some recommendations if they miss something. And then they are responsible for accuracy of information on the document. Then they have an appointment with me. I issue their OPT I-20 as part of that appointment and go over sort of the next steps of filing, what to expect, and their OPT reporting. It's kind of a rehash of the workshop, but I like to double enforce those concepts. And the student, though, they're, like I said, they're responsible for accuracy of information. They're responsible for applying within the stated timeframes. I don't mail for them or anything like that. they are responsible for submitting properly and responsible for receiving their documentation. I do not allow EADs to be mailed to our office.
Thank you. At Santa Clara, I would say we have, a process that's not dissimilar to any of the ones described here. I would say at one point in time, we really didn't have anything for OPT, and then we kind of swung the pendulum and we're doing like hyper detailed one-on-one appointments with every single student where we were checking every single solitary field, making sure that they filled out the I-94 correctly by looking at their I-94, that kind of stuff. About 2 years ago, we decided to scale back a little bit and focus our one-on-one time with students on exclusively things that would get their application rejected or denied. So we have like a document where it lists out, which of the fields on the form we actually check and to what degree. And then in terms of support prior to their one-on-one appointment, we have a workshop that's recorded that's online. And then we also have it's essentially a PowerPoint presentation saved as a PDF where it goes through every field on the I-765 form and how we would recommend that a student fill it out. And so I think we feel really, as Sharon, really positive about our OPT program at Santa Clara. I think our students typically use our resources really well and come to their one-on-one appointments with everything prepared. And I will say, we have, of course, as everyone has, transitioned to, instead of doing one-on-one appointments in person in our office with like the printed packet, we're now reviewing everything online. But I think this new online system is really making me question what we're going to be doing in the future. So to pivot into the reason why we're all here, the online filing system, I wonder if you could just each talk a little bit about either how you have or how you will be changing your processes to support online filing, or if you will be doing that. We'll start with Sharon.
Okay, so we will be supporting online filing. What we need to do is review what we already have, identify what we need to update, and then make the updates. And we envision using, updating the existing resources and not necessarily having to recreate everything, but just make those additions where necessary. But we may also have some added content on here's how to fill out the online form. And then we'll also direct them to the USCIS materials as well. We don't want to recreate the wheel. We want to supplement and help maybe clarify some of the questions that students will still have after viewing the USCIS materials.
Great, Eric.
Yeah, I think similar to Sharon, we're going to update what we already have. And so far, the students that have used the online filing have used our existing information that's based on the paper filing, and from what we've seen, have been pretty successful in filling out the online version of the I-765. So we may realize that we don't have to do much other than just kind of giving some more context in terms of the online filing. And something that we haven't discussed, but we'll have to look at is whether we just have students exclusively use the online filing rather than mail, and just take away any sort of mention of mailing the application. I think, it's at this point easier for students to just do that. I think a lot of our issues that we've encountered are students sitting on their applications and mailing them too late, or USCIS getting them too late. So I think this is going to be a good push for everyone to move into the 20th century. And so, yeah, we're going to look to modify our resources and then see how, we move forward with either just requiring them to do the online filing and taking away the mail option.
Yeah, I think for me, I really didn't do much of anything. So I'm a little bit lower tech. I didn't actually talk about that earlier. I apologize. All I have is a checklist online. Checklist with some guided instructions on completing certain portions of the I-765 that can be confusing. I don't tell students how to fill out their gender or marital status, like those things are up to them. But I do go over the questions that are possibly more concerning to students or that they might mess up on. So basically all I did was copy and paste that into a new online checklist, remove some things that they don't have to deal with by filing online, and adding screenshots. So when I don't know how many of you got the opportunity to sit in on the CIS webinars, but I, without their permission, took screenshots of everything and have just stolen that and updated it. So I think a little bit later, we'll be sharing some resources. You'll see that I did that if you take a look at my school's documentation. Not having videos, I didn't have to update any of that stuff, but I did have a link in the online checklist to the ones that USCIS put together. Again, what Sharon said, I have no interest in recreating the wheel. I've had several students apply online with zero issue, even before I had the online checklist done beautifully. So yeah, the simple screenshots seem to be enough. We have to also recognize the age that we're in. Again, it is 2021. Every student nowadays knows how to fill out an online form. They're quite adept with online systems. So do we need to be detailed to that level of hand-holding with students who are already so used to these kinds of things? I would caution everyone to take that into consideration when developing your own policies. Like Eric, I'm going to be giving it a semester's worth of filing to make sure that the online system works well and all bugs are not, that there are no bugs, as well, no non-normal bugs. You know, I'm expecting the same stuff to go wrong in real life that it does in the online life. And if it does go well, I will probably also be taking down the mailing instruction version, leaving the online, but with a caveat at the end that if anyone prefers to do mail, they can talk to me about it. But I don't think that students will choose that option, knowing the benefits that online gives.
Yeah, I think, you know, in terms of Santa Clara, we have pretty much said that we're going to wait a few months
before we put out any resources to support online filing. And I think part of the reason for that is I think we probably will redo a lot of our resources to exclusively recommend online filing and therefore remove some of the stuff around like the walkthrough of how to fill out every single question on the I-765. I think, you know, as I mentioned, we're a little bit overwhelmed right now. We have some staffing shortages in our office and we're training a brand new advisor. And so for us, the online filing has really just been an opportunity to establish some boundaries around what is possible. That, like, yes, it is very exciting. And I personally am really excited. And I know our team is really excited about it. But we just don't have the time right now to redo our workshops, to redo our workshop videos, to redo our website, and give our students the level of support that I think they would want and that they would need and that is normative for our school's culture. And so for that reason, we're not going to immediately support online filing, but I think that we will eventually develop quite robust resources. I think it's just a matter of when, in terms of the other priorities that we have on our plate right now. And then as I mentioned, we did have another panelist, and she is at Minerva, and they are already doing 100% of their filings online. She meets with each student individually to help them fill out the online system. I think she gives them a list of the documents they need to bring with them to the appointment, and then they fill out the online filing system form together to make sure that it's like filled out correctly, and that supports their university's culture, which is to provide, you know, direct support to their students. They have about 700 students and do about 100 OPT applications a year. So I see that we're popping off in the comments section. As Kelly, who is our host, mentioned, we are going to have an opportunity for people to submit questions and upvote them. I'm going to move on to a little group reflection. So we're just going to get started with some questions for everyone. If you want to navigate yourself to menti.com, menti.com, and enter the code 1590-0035, you will be able to answer some questions so that we can share in this wonderful experience together.
It's nice to see East Coasters. Thanks for joining us on a Friday night so late. Not not the most fun way of spending your Friday, or maybe it is a fun way to spend your Friday night.
Hopefully you have a cocktail.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully you've got something. All right, I'm going to move on to our next question. What kind of OPT do you do at your school? Select all that apply. All right. This maps to what I would think. I know not every school supports pre-completion OPT, and that not every school is has students eligible for STEM OPT extension. In California, we have lots of big public schools. You can tell that by our panel makeup. We have the UCs, the CSUs, the California community colleges, which are the largest educational system in the world. Nice to see a good mix here. And go ahead and tell us a little bit more about your school. Really just to get people used to using Mentimeter. All right, moving right along. So how many applications do you do a year? Just on average. Good mix. Big schools, small schools, and everything in between. So just trying to get an idea of like, who's here? What are you planning to do? This one takes a little bit more preparation, a little more attention, I guess. This is asking about before online filing. So it looks like most schools require one-on-one review of the application or offer it. Some schools prepare the applications with their students. Few people leave it up to the student entirely. And then what do you think about the new online filing option? What words would you use to describe it? Nusha, is that you? It's about time.
No, but it's correct.
Excited.
I'll be right back. My phone is going on.
All right. And next, what describes your plans? I think this makes sense from what we're hearing. Schools are planning to support it, trying to develop resources on top of everything else we're doing, issuing initial I-20s, supporting OPT for people graduating, answering 20 million questions about vaccines and travel, or maybe that's just us. All right, and just one more question. I think, what resources are you going to be putting together? Select all that apply.
So I think this is interesting to see because, of course, I think we always think the way that we're doing it is the way that it must be done. And it's a good reminder that not every school approaches things the same way. And it's okay to take a step back and say, maybe you don't want to do one-on-one application review. Maybe you don't want to offer a workshop. Maybe you just want to put the walkthrough on the website, right? All right. So we're going to go ahead and start with questions. We have a couple of questions that have been pre-submitted. You can submit your questions directly to Mentimeter, and I will use those questions to move us forward. I wanted to also mention to you that as I put in some of the emails and as we've referred to a few times, we've put together some curated resources that you can use to move the process of supporting online filing forward in your practice. We've put together a video walkthrough of the actual online filing system as if we were applying for OPT. I've taken screenshots from within the online filing system of every single screen and every single question. We've pulled out evidence lists so that you can see what evidence is requested for pre-completion OPT, post-completion OPT, STEM OPT extension. And then we also have downloaded the sample I-765 that's generated once a student completes the online filing system. So it's the review copy essentially, and you can see what it looks like. These are absolutely free. Do with them what you will. The recording has no sound, so you can record over it if you want. You're welcome to use the screenshots. These are just to try to help people move forward. Everyone's really busy right now. We don't all need to create, fake accounts to log in, although I actually think that it's really helpful and I like the system a lot better. And yes, Violet, I did. That's how I did the walkthrough, is I created an account and an application. So yeah, that's what I did. And then within that folder, there is also a Google document that you can use to share your resources. So if you're developing resources that you're comfortable sharing with other schools, I would absolutely suggest that you put them into that document. I think we just really want to encourage people to share best practices, to share resources. We don't need to generate everything from scratch all the time. So please do that if you're comfortable doing it. All right, so let us spend the rest of our time answering some questions. I'm going to go ahead and start looking at the questions that were pre-submitted. And these are in that Google folder. I've started to answer some of them, but I definitely want to get some perspectives from our panelists. And then questions that are submitted via the Mentimeter, which again, it's just that menti.com and the code 15 or 15900035. If questions are submitted to that we don't get to, I will put them into the crowdsourced questions and answers document, and our panelists and I will answer those questions based on what we would do at our schools. So I just want to start with the panelists and ask you, what would you do? We'll just start immediately with the nightmare scenario. What would you do if your student submitted their online filing before they asked you for an OPT or a STEM OPT I-20? How would you handle that situation at your school? Panelists can unmute and answer.
Can answer that because I actually had a student do that. They submitted their online application and then I sent them their I-20 and they said, oh, do I need to do something with this? Yes, you do. They were actually able to upload it after the fact really easily. How that will affect their application or if it will, who knows? But they, without any real guidance from me, I just said, you need to upload this to your application. They did it on their own and, maybe they're a very savvy student, but it seemed like it wasn't an issue, that it was submitted and then they had to go back and upload their I-20 at a later date. Like I said, they just submitted it, so we'll see if they have any issues, but that's been my experience.
Let me caveat that, Eric. The online instructions say very specifically, you must submit the application with the OPT recommendation. If you look at USCIS instructions, they say, or you will be denied. Historically, if that has happened and the DSO has reached out to USCIS, attached the I-20 with the receipt notice, and it's within 30 days of the initial receipt of the application, historically, USCIS has taken it. There is no guarantee. So if you guys land into student situations like this, they have two options. They can do exactly what your kid did, Eric, and upload it a day late, ideally with a cover letter or some sort of explanation as to what happened, and that it from the DSO that it would normally have been issued with that at that time. And they can cross fingers and hope. Or they can work through USCIS to withdraw the application. To my knowledge, there's no way to do that electronically. So that is still a write in and wait process, and then refile properly. So you got to go over the pros and cons of both of those scenarios with your students if they incorrectly apply. It is on them to apply correctly. So let's be really clear about that. Your applicant is the student. The student's responsibility is to apply properly, and they should not expect leniency from an agency if they do not, okay? But there are recourses you can try and attempt to take with no guarantees to the student. So it would be describing the two paths that are there and going over the pros and cons, right? If we try path number one, which is to attach late and hope, your USCIS adjudicator may not accept that. If the denial comes after your 60-day grace period, we can't reapply. You will have to reapply. If we can reapply, it's another 410 and another waiting period, right? If we're going to do the withdrawal, it's going to take this amount of time, 2 months-ish, before we even know if it's gotten withdrawn, up to 2 months, right? So you got to have those conversations and let the student pick which path it is that's best for them.
Yeah.
Just like as if they did it in real life, guys. So let me, I've seen a lot of questions come in the online system as if anything's changed. Nothing's changed. The way you apply for OPT is exactly the same as you're applying through the mail. The only difference is you're turning documents that you would normally physically have to have in your hand to an electronic version before attaching them to the application. So just like in real life, if someone doesn't apply properly, misses things that they need to include, you shouldn't expect that the adjudication decision is going to be any different than had they done that electronically. Okay, so don't think of this as like a totally separate process. It's the same process, just digitized. So anything that you submitted before, I've seen some questions come in like, what do we need to include? All the same stuff you needed to include before. OPT I-20 recommendation.
I think that brings us to a really good question that we submitted. And I want to talk about this because I think in our prep for this, we had a really good conversation about this. So there is not concurrence among schools about what documents should be submitted with OPT applications. So I know in our conversation just the other day, there's 5 schools on the call and 5 different answers to what documents should be submitted. So one of the questions that we received in advance was about, the evidence link. And for example, should students be uploading copies of all of their prior I-20s? So, at Santa Clara, we have always recommended that students submit copies of all prior I-20s, but I think looking at the new online filing system and the way that the evidence is listed in the online filing system, they only ask for very specific evidence. And so to us, it's opening up questions about what evidence should be submitted. Eric, you had some good points about do you include all prior I-20s and how your school is successful? And I know Sharon, UC Davis has an opinion about that too. I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, we advise our students just to include the I-20 with the OPT recommendation. We do not advise them to submit old I-20s unless they're asked for it, with an RFE. We have them document old CVIS ID numbers in part 6 on page 7 and prior OPT authorizations and such on that page 7. So they get approved, and to our knowledge, they're not ever asked for those additionals.
For us, we just say any I-20s that have work authorization as it pertains to your time at UC Santa Barbara. So we don't say you need every I-20 that you've ever been issued. And we get requests from students asking for I-20s from when they were a student here 7 years ago. So I would ask the field that, maybe just start focusing on the time that your student was at your school and just include anything that is within that application.
Yeah, we do the same. My current recommendation has been to include the I-20 only if it shows CPT or OPT authorization as the proof, since they don't define what proof is on page 7. No issues. And in fact, after USCIS's webinar with their screenshot, I also removed the need for visa copies. USCIS doesn't ask for it. Why am I asking for it?
So I'm in the USCIS online filing system right now. This is what it looks like if you have an application that you have not yet finished. So your draft is in progress. I'm going to go ahead and open it and just show people who haven't already been in the system kind of what it looks like from an evidence standpoint. So once you put in your eligibility category, which is the first question that you're asked in the online filing system, the evidence that's required to be uploaded populates. So if I go from post-completion to pre-completion, the evidence will close. And then if we bring it back, there is another document listed, proof of enrollment, right? If we go from pre-completion to STEM OPT extension, proof of enrollment disappears and college degree or institutional accreditation is populated. And then within the actual evidence piece, there is some explanation about what it is that they're supposed to be uploading. And then there's the same information about the file requirements on each one. And then it is possible to upload multiple pieces of evidence per evidence requirement. So for example, if a student had an L2 EAD card and then had an H4 EAD card and then had an OPT EAD card, they could upload 3 different copies of an EAD card. USCIS has also said that students are okay if they want to combine everything into one PDF and upload just one PDF, that's also allowed. But I do think, and I've gone through and pulled the list of evidence for each filing category and then copied and pasted this information for the pieces of evidence. So that's one of the curated resources that's available to you if you want to take a look at that. But I totally agree, Nusha. We've always recommended passports and copies of all prior US visas. There is no request for a visa. It's one of many documents listed that could be used for the employment authorization document or government ID field, right? So I think the evidence seems really complex, and I was quite confused about what evidence is required based on the USCIS calls. But I think when you get into the system, when you see the screenshots, when you see the evidence lists change based on the eligibility criteria, it becomes a little more clear what they're looking for, which again is causing me to rethink, do we really need the students to be submitting, to Eric's point, I-20s from 10 years ago? And I think the answer now is no, which might not be a new answer to you, but is certainly a new answer to me and probably others on the call.
So Sarah, let me also jump in here. I'm seeing lots of questions about the types of documentation. The scope of this webinar is not really to get into how to apply for OPT and what documents to include. So I'm going to place a link into the chat box that was that's a basic guide to OPT, understanding the application and troubleshooting processes. That will go over the types of documentation that you need to include for OPT applications. So if you're unclear on any of those requirements, please do take a look at that. It does require NAFSA login, which is free, but then the best practices guide is available for download. I want to quickly touch on the accreditation because I'm seeing the chat blow up. You don't need to do anything for accreditation. It's only for folks who are applying for STEM based on a previous degree, and to date, the only thing they've needed to do is upload a copy of that degree. If you're very concerned about it, you can write a cover letter that you can include. I write a very snarky one that I used to give to my students to send off with their applications. It says, "Dear USCIS, no student will ever know this. Please feel free to research the school if you like." It's not necessary. I do that because I'm just bratty. Not necessary. The only thing you need is a copy of the degree and the copy of the old I-20s. Sometimes people like to include that and you're good to go. Okay, so don't worry, don't stress about that one too much, but take a look at that practical training, optional practical training, understanding application and troubleshooting processes if you want to get into like the weeds of OPT.
So I'm going to go with a couple more of the questions that have been submitted. And again, I really would prefer that people submit questions to Mentimeter. That way I can capture them and answer them if we don't get to them, because we only have about 15 minutes left. If they're being put into the chat, like I'm definitely not going to be able to see them because I have about 14 screens open right now. One of the other questions that is coming up a lot, and I would love to hear people's perspective on this, is questions about whether it's possible to file for OPT from outside of the US. I have a very strong opinion about this, and I know it's not a popular opinion, but USCIS has clearly stated in no uncertain terms, multiple times within the last month, that it is absolutely not allowed to file for OPT while you're outside of the US. I know that some schools do still issue I-20s for students that are outside the US to file. There's a lot of questions about how that impacts or how that's related to the SCVP guidance that students who are outside the US are still considered in active F1 status. My opinion is that we shouldn't conflate SCVP guidance with USCIS guidance, that just because SCVP says that they're in active status doesn't mean that USCIS thinks they are. I'm curious if our panelists have any other thoughts about filing while outside of the US.
So, I mean, I'll chime in. You know that I'm the opposite view on this. We've posted on that before. It's literally never been an issue. So I have students apply from outside the US all the time. I do tell them they need to be physically here in the US when the application is expected to be approved for a number of reasons. Troubleshooting, a returned EAD, or any issues with card delivery, you gotta be here. So that's my caveat to them. I have never had an issue with this ever. USCIS doesn't consider it an abandoned application. They have said that actually pretty recently, confirmed that. So I have had no issue with this, and I will continue to allow that. I personally will not be the one to put a barrier in front of my students applying, but I will explain the pros and the cons and the possibility that if they're outside the US at the time the case is adjudicated, that is a possibility, right? The USCIS will consider it abandoned. But never have I ever seen that in like the 20, I'm old now, but like in the 20 years I've been filing, I've never had an issue with this.
Yeah, we just tell students, you know, USCIS says you need to be in the US when you're applying for the application. If you're applying outside, then you're assuming any risk involved with your application getting denied or rejected. So we don't necessarily bar the students from doing it. We just toe the party line, so to speak, to say, this is what we've been told, and we don't have any sort of say one way or the other if you decide to do it on your own.
I would echo that. That's pretty much identical to what we tell our students. There were a couple of extreme exceptions with the pandemic and students, you know, being stuck outside, not being able to get back in. And I think we had a few try, and I don't have data on if they were successful, but yeah, students can get kind of crafty about how they do it, but we definitely advise them to the risks and really tell them that they should be here to be able to get those RFEs or to get the EAD card.
Thank you. So one of the questions that was submitted was about payment methods. So I'm going to go ahead and just share in the curated resources. There's screenshots of every page within the online filing system. And here's what the payment methods look like on pay.gov. Students can pay with a variety of different types of credit cards, and they can also pay using their own checking or savings account. And then depending on the option they pick, they have different fields that they need to fill out that give I would say, pretty good instructions. And again, this is in those curated resources. It's in the screenshots of the different systems. All right, next question.
So there's a lot of questions about evidence and what evidence to submit. As you know, as Nusha mentioned, and as I've mentioned, I put together the curated resources to try to clarify what evidence is asked for. I hope that showing you that you can upload multiple pieces of evidence is helpful. One of the other questions that we were asked about evidence is about the section on additional information. So if you, for example, in the About You section where it asks for the student's SEVIS ID number, it says use additional information section to include any previously used SEVIS ID numbers. And so if you go down to the additional information section, you have the option to add a response, or the students have an option to add a response. And then it asks like, what section is the response in relation to? It's related to About You. It's related to your immigration information. It's related to the SEVIS ID question. And then they can add an explanation. So this essentially functions as the page 7 of the I-765. And so I think to me, this just really harkens back to a point that Nusha and Eric both have made, and that is like, the system itself is actually more user-friendly than you would think that it is. It actually has quite a bit of logic built into it to help support unique situations. And then in addition to adding responses, you can also upload additional evidence as well into the evidence section. As I mentioned, you can upload multiple pieces of evidence. All right. I'm just going to scroll through some of our questions. A lot related to evidence. One of the questions or comments was if anyone has updated their website with online filing tips, it would be great if they could share. Again, there is in the curated resources folder a document where we're asking people who are comfortable to share their online resources. The document is called Share Your I-765 Online Filing Resources Here. So go ahead and edit and add into that if you'd like. Nusha, you answered about withdrawing. Have you said that there's not an option to withdraw within the system once the application is submitted, that it has to be done via paper?
From what I'm aware of, yes. At this time, I don't think there's any interaction past submission. That is one of the things that if you all are taking a moment to comment to USCIS, I hope you will, on how they can help applicants and reduce barriers, this might be a great one to include in your comment letters, is that, you know, first off, thank them for expanding to the OPT to this online portal, but ask them to continue to develop online tools. So like submitting address changes, there's no reason students should, why is someone else having to adjudicate that, right? Like these things should be on automatic update. So do encourage them to continue to make their systems better in this regard, allowing an automatic, no adjudication necessary withdrawal tie to their system and updating address changes right away. I highly encourage that in your comments.
Okay. So this question was submitted in advance and then also was just submitted now. We've been told that students need to write N/A on the I-765 for questions that they do not have an answer to. Can you do this in the online form? Do any of the panelists have any opinions about the use of NA or not applicable?
There's no need for it in the online form because the only questions that will show up are the ones you need to answer.
And when you print out or do the PDF preview from the online, it actually inserts NA in places that there wasn't a response for. So.
Yeah, and the guidance to put not applicable or NA and all of the major issues with USCIS around that issue, around that, the use of NA or blank fields on a form actually was never related to the I-765 form, and USCIS was sued over it and rescinded that guidance. So I would say
for our school, it's not a best practice to tell students to put N/A in blank fields. We've actually seen students that have gotten EAD cards with NA listed as their name on the card because they put NA in one of the fields, and the data entry person thought that their name was NA. So yeah, we don't tell students to do that based on the most recent update that's not required anymore, and was never required for I-765s. As Eric said, the system does generate, I'm just gonna put this here, does generate a copy that students can download. I think Nisha, you said you're having students bring this to their appointments, is that right?
Yeah, my new process is for them to go all the way through to the point of payment. Then if they stop their application right there, don't go to payment, because it says if you go to payment, you're submitting, right? So I have them return back to their application, download the draft I-765 and send this to me. That is my intended process. So we will see how that works, but that is the goal. Sometimes the students, they also have the option to hand fill it and send it to me, but ideally what they'll do is send me this. It's going to make my job easier, because as far as reviewing, like, nothing should be incomplete, right? And that critical thing, the C3B, is the whole thing that drove the entire application. So I know that's not missing. So this is kind of my way of making my life a little bit easier, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, and I think that's a good reminder that, again, the form is extremely relational. So if you select C3C, you're then immediately asked, what's your degree? What's your employer's name? What's your employer's E-Verify company? But if you select pre-completion OPT, that question completely disappears. So it's a very relational form. There's a lot of logic built into it that hopefully will help alleviate confusion around some of the questions. There's been some questions about photos. Nusha, Eric, Sharon, what are you telling students about photos for the online system? Do they have to take them at a professional shop? Can they take them at home? What would your guidance to students be?
I still recommend the normal process. Go get your normal photos done, except you only need one. So if they find a place that pays, buy the photo, just one, and then they can scan and upload it. I'm not, my actual instructions say do not take pictures of anything. I'm going to highly recommend you get all official stuff and use official scanners as opposed to pictures. Make sure they're free of anything in the border, no thumbprints, no tables, things like that. So again, I am not viewing this as a change from regular physical filing. The only difference that I'm seeing it as is turning those original documents into a physical upload.
And then just a reminder, the Department of State has the photo requirements on their website, and they also have a photo tool where students can upload the electronic copy of their photo, and they'll be told whether the photo is acceptable or not acceptable, right? So they'll be told whether it's a good photo or not. I would say at Santa Clara, we probably will tell students that they can take their own photos at home as long as they meet the requirements and are validated in the system when they're uploaded. All right, we are at time. I know that there's been a ton of questions. I'm going to have to scour through this chat. I will go ahead and in that curated resources folder, there's a document called Crowdsource Questions and Answers. I'll go ahead and put any unanswered questions into that and put in some guidance about how we would handle the situation at Santa Clara. You're welcome to put in guidance about how you would handle it at your school as well. I think the main takeaway there is that, I don't want to say there are no right answers, but that, different schools handle things differently, and we all have different interpretations and ways that we support our students. And so some of these questions are not like black and white, yes or no regulations. Just a reminder of a couple of resources that we've created. You've gotten a link already to the curated I-765 resources. I am also, Kelly, our host, is going to put into the chat a link to a professional development resource list that's been put together by Sharon's team, the Northern California district team. that has a list of all kinds of different professional development resources for international educators. And then just a reminder that NAFSA is transitioning our regional conferences to an all region summit that's going to be happening in October. The call for proposals is already out, and our regions are all looking for great homegrown content. I would really encourage you to connect with other schools and put together submissions for our all region summit, which will be open to all regions, but is also being reviewed by like proposals are being reviewed by the regional teams as well. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it, especially those staying up late on the East Coast. It was great to see everyone. I hope that you all have a great rest of your day.
And really quickly, I want to say thank you to Sarah. She's the one that put together all of the resources. So she used we, but it's really her that did all the heavy lifting and work. So thank you, Sarah, for saving us all having to go through all of that.
Yes, I echo that. Thanks, Sarah. Tons.
Well, thank you, panelists. I really appreciate hearing your perspectives. It's definitely given me some things to ponder as we're developing our processes at Santa Clara. We're definitely not going to be requiring all prior I-20s. Eric, you've converted me. All right. Thanks to everyone. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, thank you, everyone.
Bye, thanks.
Thank you.